All right, so apparently last week in San Jose, Oiler fans, now Yakupov, the 22-year-old with 6 goals this season, he's been hurt to be fair to him, but 6 goals this year, told a Russian newspaper he asked for a trade before the deadline and something happened and he didn't leave. That something was probably the Oilers didn't get what they were asking for, but c'est la vie. Obviously, this bit of news on a Monday in Canada will hit the sports news cycle pretty hard. It began on Hockey Central at noon today on Sportsnet with Jeff Merrick and the guys. They spoke to Igor Larionov, Niall's agent.
I'm trying to help this young man. I spent a lot of time with Peter Chiarelli, with a lot of respect for him, and we kept everything professional and quiet. And I spoke to Todd McClellan. We're trying to help and how to move Nail and to the right direction. Nail loves the city of Edmonton. He loves the fans, and obviously he would like to stay there. But I guess at some point, he needs some fresh start and and fresh air to move on.
All right, so fair enough. Agent doing a good job of protecting his client. After the morning skate today, Arizona taking on the Oilers. You can see it on Sportsnet later in Edmonton. The Edmonton media ran into that room and tried to sink their claws into young Nail Yakupov and ask him exactly what went on.
The agent and the team had a discussion about it, but I don't know any details, and that's it. Just still here, still play for the Oilers, right? And I just focus on my game right now. That's it.
Why do you want him? Why do you want him? Fresh start.
I don't know any details. That's it. Just focus on the game right now. They've been talk. I don't know if you have any questions. Just ask my agent.
So you're saying you specifically didn't bring up wanting to go
upstairs and ask for a trade.
Your agent did ask Pete Chiarelli to move you before the deadline. That's not a bad story, or it's not.
I don't know. Probably they did. Probably to talk about each other.
At your direction, like, did you ask your agent to say that? Usually the player's involved in these things, right?
I don't know. I didn't really talk. I have not any details, so if you have any questions, just go there and ask, because I have no idea. Igor.
Thank you.
Good?
Well, that was about as comfortable as a colonoscopy. And to be fair to him, we've seen a couple of guys in dicey spots. The Jonathan Drouin press conference when he first got, not press conference, scrum, when he first got to Syracuse after the incident with Tampa, that was pretty uncomfortable too. So to be fair to Niall, this happens, but that's how it played out today. The voice that dominated proceedings, didn't just ask questions, dominated towards the end of whatever that was Mark Spector from Sportsnet.ca. And Inspector Deck is joining us from Edmonton. Spec, that was interesting this morning.
Yeah, it was one of those cases, and much like the Drouin case, guys, where that's a big boy move. When your agent phones the GM and says, trade my guy, you're swimming with a big fish now, because not many guys want to do that. It's tough to come out the next day and pretend nothing happened, to pretend you didn't know about it. It doesn't jive for me. If you're going to make that move, you better stand up and say you made that move, right? Instead of kind of shrugging your shoulders and going, I don't know what happened here. I'm not sure.
Spec, you have a great piece on Sportsnet.ca today, kind of rolling back the clock a little bit on Yakupov and talking about how the previous Oilers administration, the one that drafted him first, there was a split, and a split not in his favor, interestingly, among the people, kind of the brains around the table about who they should draft with that pick. It was a minority call on Yakupov. Given that, given that the new administration has no ties to this guy, and how do you think the new guys feel about him right at this moment?
Well, I'll tell you what, the new guys didn't make the draft pick. They didn't go out on a limb when their scouts had voted 9-2 to pick another player, which was Ryan Murray, that Columbus ended up drafting. And the regime, of course, previous to this one, went out and told their scouts, thanks for your information, but we're taking Yakupov anyway. That group's going to be married to the pick for a while. Now Pete Chiarelli comes in here as general manager. Todd McClellan's the new head coach. They are not married to the pick, and they are surely not married to what has been a bit of a mistake by the Edmonton Oilers. They're ready to move on from this pick, and that's a bit of the irony here, guys. If Larionov had his ear to the ground, he'd know they've been trying to trade Yakupov for long before the trade deadline here. He's been on the market most of the season, so I don't get where Larionov's coming from on this one, gentlemen.
Spec, based on everything you've seen from this kid, and you've watched him a hell of a lot more than me, do you believe a change in scenery will turn him into a consistent 25 to 30 goal guy in this league, or is what we're seeing what we're getting?
He's got to be able to play better than he's played here, right? He won the Green Jacket last year. He was minus 35. He was minus 34 the year, or 33 the year before that. You know, he's got 6 goals this season. There's got to be more player here than that, gentlemen. There just has to be. But which team and which coach is going to take a strong offensive center and say, okay, son, we're giving you this project. The puck's going to end up in your net, probably a lot more than it's going to end up on the other net for a while. But if you bear with us, he might improve. If they can find that team and they can find that situation, you know, maybe a team like Toronto where no one's that interested in the W's and the L's, but they're trying to develop talent. If they can find that situation, put Yakupov in it, you're probably going to get a better player down the road. How much better than this? I'm not going to bet a whole lot better, gents.
But Spec, I guess the question becomes then, are you willing to give him away? Because, you know, they couldn't trade him at the deadline. Post-deadline, we have the player agitating to be moved out of town, which always kind of puts your back up against a wall, trying to make a deal in any case. There are all those question marks around him that you talked about there. Unless you're willing to give him away, I would think his market value as a trade commodity is near zilch right now, isn't it?
No, it's very, very low, and that's why he remains as an Edmonton Oiler after the trade deadline. Look, here's the deal. We've made it through this season. They've looked at the player. The player's not improved very much. The team is clearly ready to move on from smaller, inconsistent, poor defensive players. They got to move Yakupov. At this point, yeah, I think he'll go for, honestly, the range right now is about a 4th-round pick. Here's what I know for sure. Todd McLellan can't come back next fall and say to one of his centermen who's trying to make this team better, who's trying to be productive, who's trying to improve, here's your winger. His name's now Yakupov. He's been a minus player his whole career. He's probably still going to be. Take him and work with him. We're done with that here. It's someone else's turn to take that project on. That project's finished here. If Todd McLellan brings that player back into his dressing room and gives him to one of his top centers, he begins to lose that top centerman, I'm here to tell you. So that move has to get made. It will get made this summer. I'd bet you, oh boy, a whole bunch of notepads that Neil Yakupov will get a fresh start somewhere else next fall.
Spec, I mean, finally, we all expect him to move eventually. And we all agree this has not worked out. My next question is, was he part of the problem, or was he a product of the problem?
Well, listen, there's absolutely a portion of the blame here gets assigned to an organization that has proven itself dysfunctional. Right from the time they picked him, here's an organization that hires a whole bunch of scouts, puts them on the ground to do their job. Well, they all come back and say, don't draft somebody, and they draft him anyway. So, yeah. Then Neil Yakupov gets a new coach every year. Has that helped? Of course it hasn't helped. But I'm going to say this. Taylor Hall got a new coach every year too. Jordan Eberle, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, they all got a new coach every year too. At this point, let's go out in the trade market with those 4 players. I'll tell you right now, Taylor Hall commands a whole bunch on the trade market today, certainly more than Yakupov does. So, yes, the Oilers bear some responsibility. They've not been a strong organization. There's no doubt about that. But the player has not done much on his side either, and I guess that's where we are where we're at. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. Spec, never a dull moment. Always appreciate the time. We'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thank you very much.
All right, boys. Pleasure.
Mark Spector, Sportsnet, sportsnet.ca. You know, I like Spec a lot because he's not afraid to rattle some cages in that market. And a lot of people don't like that in that market. But I have a lot of time for Spec, and give him a read if you're semi-interested in this team. He's a great read.
Yeah, that piece today about the draft of Yakupov is a fantastic bit of reporting.
Absolutely. Oilers Ducks tonight, 8:30 Eastern is where things get underway. And again, Oilers fans, remember, the NHL Draft Lottery is April 30th on Hockey Night in Canada, and is getting near. So get your orders in. It's almost time for last call.